Okay, so this is going to be a weird one because I literally just sat here, did my whole show, and didn't record it. So I've been sitting here talking for like 30, 35 minutes. Not a damn thing getting recorded. So what we're going to do, because I unfortunately do not have time to re-record the entire show the way I had done it, and I really don't want to put the episode out late because it with the CFL, it dips right into the game. We are going to do like super speed version of the show this week. My apologies, but apparently I'm stupid and didn't hit the button. So, okay, CFL Week 8, 2019. What's happening, everybody? Justin, Bridgewater's Finest on YouTube, Blockbuster_guy on Twitter, Fueled by Nerd Tees. Go to nerdtees. We're going to do the plug right now. Go to nerdtees.ca. Promo code BWFinest. Save yourself 15% at checkout. Free shipping in Canada if you go over $75. If you're American, click a couple buttons. Everything's in US dollars. Find yourself something to love and find someone you love something to love at nerdtees.ca. Here we go. Last week, 3-1 straight up. Only 1-3 against the spread, which is not good. 3-1 on the over-unders. 7-5 total last week. We're 52 and 29. See, now I'm stumbling over myself. 52 and 29 on the season. That is 64.2%. We're 70% straight up. We're over 60% against the spread. We like where we are. CFL Fantasy, I moved up from 31st to 19th in the official Atlantic Schooners CFL Fantasy Football League. That's good. Had a hell of a performance last week. 122.6 total points, led by William Powell and his massive 3-touchdown performance, as well as the Edmonton Eskimos defense pitching the shutout against Toronto. Here's my Week 8 fantasy lineup for you right now. We're leaning heavily on the Blue Bombers here, going Matt Nichols and Andrew Harris. We're not playing a defense because there's too many spots here where I want to take advantage of some injuries, and the cost just wound up getting up there too high. Not running a defense this week. That's the Week 8 fantasy lineup. Games in Week 8 look like this. Like, look, I'm sweating all over the place because I've already done this once. So, Week 8 schedule. We got Winnipeg at Toronto. We got Hamilton at Saskatchewan. We got Ottawa at Montreal. And we've got Edmonton at Calgary. So we're going to start with Winnipeg, Toronto. I'm just reading stuff straight off my sheet because whatever, this is going to be a weird one. So, Winnipeg, 5-1. They lost last week, dropping 23-15 in Hamilton against the Ticats. For me, it was just hard to account for the most disciplined team in the CFL, turning the ball over 6 times. That's rough. Andrew Harris only touched the ball 16 times in that game. You want to get him a few more touches than that. He still had 117 all-purpose yards, so he certainly did a lot with what he got, but you want to get him a few more touches. Kind of felt like a game that they kind of let get away from them, but they got snuffed out by a really good defense too. Toronto's 0-6. They're garbage. They got shut out 26-0 in Edmonton last week. They got suffocated by like the stingiest defense in the CFL. Dakota Prukop played a little bit in that game. Mcleod Bethel-Thompson got benched. He's going to be back in for the game this week. I mean, Prukop didn't exactly do a whole lot. He threw 2 interceptions. He ain't taking that job anytime soon. I'm going to move all the picks just right to the end of the video. So Hamilton, Saskatchewan, both of these teams coming in having won their last 2 games respectively. Hamilton's 5-1. They're still leading the East Division. They won that 23-15 game against Winnipeg. They won the battle, but they lost Jeremiah Masoli. He's done for the year with an ACL tear. Boy, that's going to be tough for Hamilton. Dane Evans comes in. He's 25 years old. He's out of Tulsa. He made a couple of throws, but I mean, man, he was barely over 50%. He was under 100 yards. He threw an interception. He did get a rush touchdown, which kind of salvaged the game. Actually, was probably wound up being the difference in the game. But, you know, Evans, he's certainly no Jeremiah Masoli. I think it's worth asking the question, does Hamilton need to go out and get a quarterback? Like, these guys are bona fide Grey Cup contenders, but are they if it's Dane Evans the rest of the way? So Saskatchewan 3-3. They beat the BC Lions 2 straight weeks. BC's garbage, so obviously. But they're back to 500, which is a good spot for them. They won that game last week 45-18. They go back to back. They win those games. Fajardo, his yardage went way down, but his accuracy went up. And wouldn't you know who won the pony? Fajardo and the team score more points. Obviously, William Powell, that was the big difference maker in that game. A 3-touchdown game for William Powell. They had touchdowns in all 4 quarters, did Saskatchewan. 10 points or more in 3 of the 4 quarters in that game. It was just a dominant game all around. Great game for the Riders. Ottawa Montreal. Ottawa losers of 4 straight games. Montreal winners of 3 straight games. 2 teams going in exactly the opposite direction. Jonathan Jennings, once again, not very good. Looks like Dominique Davis may come back this week for Ottawa. That would be tremendous if that was a possibility. The team defense, they gave up a ton of yardage, especially in the pass game, but they did not break. They did not allow a touchdown to Calgary. They lost that game by a single point because the coaching decision was stupid to take a safety. Montreal, back in week 6, they doubled up the Edmonton Eskimos 20-10. That game was in Montreal, just like this one is. They were probably lucky to escape that game with that kind of a win because they had a lot of penalties. They took a lot of penalty yardage, but Edmonton took way bigger and way more costly penalties on the other side, continually shot themselves in the foot. But Montreal picked up the win. Vernon Adams had a really good game, 235 all-purpose yards, Stanbeck 84 all-purpose yards, and the defense played very, very well. 4 pass knockdowns, 2 interceptions for the Alouettes defense. Their secondary was very active. They're going to look to do that again this week, generate some turnovers off of either Jonathan Jennings or a less than 100% Dominique Davis. And Edmonton Calgary. So Edmonton, both of these teams actually at 4-2, both won last week. Calgary has won 2 straight games to get to 4-2. The Eskimos shut out Toronto, obviously. It's still concerning to me that Trevor Harris has so much trouble this season finishing, and it's this thing that goes back to Ottawa as well. But I mean, like, look, they scored 26 points. He had a bunch of yardage, nearly 300 yards passing, did not score a touchdown through the air or on the ground, did Trevor Harris. The offense almost entirely run through Shaq Cooper in that game. Big game on the ground, 22 carries for $128 and a touchdown, had 5 catches for 48 yards as well. If I were Edmonton, I would be looking for ways to keep Shaq Cooper involved, even once CJ Gable's back to 100%. Like, if you can move Shaq Cooper to the slot, I think it becomes a real dangerous weapon for Edmonton moving forward. Hopefully they can do that. They were punishing in all aspects of that game against a really bad Toronto Argos football team. Calgary at 4-2. That 17-16 win over Ottawa. Again, they kind of got gifted that win because of some bad coaching decisions. They had an absolute blackout on offense, but look, Rene Paradis, he's the man. He got it done. 5 field goals and a safety. That was all Calgary needed to win that game. Injury issues, though. Juwan Braskison, he goes to the 6-game injured list. He had surgery on either his knee or his ankle. Can't remember which one. Kadeem Carey left that game last week. Looks like it's the Terry Williams show, which is why I grabbed Terry Williams in fantasy, if you'll remember. All right, week 8 picks. And again, I'm very sorry for how this episode is, but it's a time thing. I just simply don't have the time to redo the episode the way I want to do it. Winnipeg at Toronto. Mcleod Bethel Thompson's back in. James Wilder Jr. is not back in. He ain't going to play, as if you needed another reason to take Winnipeg. I'm going to take the Bombers here. I got Winnipeg in Toronto. That makes no difference here to me whatsoever. Winnipeg beats the Argos in Toronto. On the line, the Argos are 14-point dogs at home. Thank you very much, Vegas, for making this exactly 2 touchdowns. If it was more than 2 touchdowns, I might have had to think about it for a minute and a half, but I certainly don't need to. We're going to hammer Winnipeg minus 14. Total set at 48.5 points. I think this is pretty much perfect. I'm going to skew under on it because without James Wilder and with a limited Armonte Edwards probably, and Mcleod Bethel Thompson playing as poorly as he has been lately, I think Winnipeg scores a bunch. I think Toronto scores very not many. And we're going to stay under on 48.5. Hamilton at Saskatchewan. I mean, look, Masoli's done for the season. If the reports are to be believed, Brandon Banks may not play in this football game. They're already without Sean Thomas Erlington. The offensive pieces that are falling away from this Hamilton team are really tough to make up for. I think this is a really good spot for Saskatchewan at home. I'm going to take the Riders in this one at home to beat the Ticats. On the line, Ticats are 3-point dogs on the road. Saski 3-point favorites at home. I like them to win. That's not many points to lay. So let's go Saski -3. Total in the game set at 49.5 points. I capped this at a low 50. I do think it kind of squeaks over because I think Hamilton will still be capable of scoring some points, especially if Brandon Banks does play even in a limited role. I think it just kind of sneaks over. So we're going to go over 49.5 points. Ottawa Montreal, look, if Dominique Davis plays in that game, it's going to be definitely a good sign for the Red Blacks, but the Owls are well rested. They're on a roll. They got all the momentum in that division now with the injuries to Hamilton. It's a great spot for Montreal. I'm going to take the Owls at home to beat Ottawa. Hedging my bets, though, against the spread. Montreal is a 7.5-point favorite at home, which is too many for Montreal for the how inconsistent the Alouettes team is. It's just too many points. So I'm going to hedge my bets, especially with the likely return of Dominique Davis. We're going to go Ottawa plus the 7.5 points. Total in the game set at 53. I'm going to skew under on it because if Dominique Davis does not return in this game and it's still Jonathan Jennings, then that's a bad offense. Montreal's not exactly an offense that lights the world on fire. Both defenses played fairly well last time out, so we're going to skew under 53 points. And in Edmonton at Calgary, how many more pieces of this Calgary team can you rip out of the cyborg before it just stops working? I think it's a fair question to ask because they're already without Bo Levi Mitchell. They're without Don Jackson. Now they're without Breskison. They're without Kadeem Carey. I'm not overly thrilled with what I've seen from Terry Williams, but just based on volume, he should be a good play for fantasy. I'm going to take Edmonton here. That's a suffocating defense. If they force Nick Arbuckle to have to win this game through the air, I think they can handle him. So we're going to take Edmonton in this one. Edmonton in Calgary, hanging a loss on the Stamps. On the line, Stamps are 1-point dogs at home. I'm going to take Edmonton, obviously -1. I like them to win. Let's take the Eskimos. Total in the game set at 46.5 points. I feel like this goes over. Not by a lot, mind you. I got this capped at a high 40. But I do think it goes over. Even something like a 26-23, which I could see as a very realistic score in this game, that's 49 points, that's over. So we're going to go over on 46.5. There you go, folks. Thank you for sitting through what was inarguably my worst episode of the season thus far. I promise to make it up to you next week. I'm working on maybe getting a guest again for next week, but hopefully we can get something extra special going next week. I will definitely be making it up to you. Thank you for taking the time to watch. That's it for me, very briefly. Justin, Bridgewater's Finest on YouTube, Blockbuster_guy on Twitter, fueled as always by the incredible folks at NerdTees, nerdtees.ca with that promo code BWFinest. Enjoy the games in Week 8, and we will see you again for Week 9.